後でね。後でね。
This is Closet Gamers.
We restart our Waterdeep campaign in the slums of the newly developing field ward at a tavern called Hole in the Wall near the Northgate marshalling area. It's been 4 days since the group's misadventure on their first foray into a hidden brick shaft under the tavern's root cellar. A poison needle trap on a secret door nearly killed Rufus as the PCs followed a possible entrance to the famous Eastern warrior Yamamoto Musashi's tomb. The group gets a room from the tavern's owner, and the priestess spends several days casting healing over Rufus and the other PCs after the disastrous experience. They also agreed to the priestess's demands of being an equal member of the group, especially when it comes to important decisions. The group heads back to the shaft and makes their way into a large room. Rufus takes no chances and continuously checks for hidden traps all the way down the stone corridor. The group enters a room with a stone golem that is carved to resemble a samurai warrior. Behind the golem is a large mirror, and the party activates the golem by getting within 10 feet of the odd mirror, and a vicious melee ensues. Reinhardt gets some great rolls, and with his +2 battle axe he starts to do some serious damage to the construct. The others seem to do no harm to the golem with their weapons. The large human fighter shrugs off several slow spells and smashes the golem to bits in 3 rounds. The PCs search the room and the crumbled construct before turning their attention to the odd mirror. The reflection seems much darker than normal, even with a torchlight near the glass. Each person's reflection shows a sneering face and an expression of evil intent. The shadows seem to linger on the reflected PC's movement, and reflections back to them seem delayed or slower somehow. They find that the mirror is some type of portal, and the group steps through. They enter a small dark cavern with a shadowy curtain at the other end. An odd, oppressive feeling washes over all the player characters except for the necromancer Musashi. As the group moves out of the tiny cavern through the shadowy curtain, the priestess comments on the oppressive feelings of lost hope and doubt. "We have entered the Shadowfell plain," she tells the group. Ahead, the group sees a stone bridge that leads to a small fishing village. No sun is out, and the shadowy darkness fits the feelings of doubt. Dark water laps at the shoreline of a small island with several huts raised up on stilts around its perimeter. It appears that there is some activity in the small village. All colors seems to be sucked from this place, as everything is a shade of gray, including the player characters and their gear. The only light seems to shine from some type of small tower on top of a stone building across the island. In the middle of the stone bridge is a chest, a sword, and other items that look like gems. Stale, heavy air is breathed in, and even the sound seems slightly muted. The priestess tells the PCs that the feeling of dread and despair will only get worse in the Shadowfell. It is best to leave here as quickly as possible. The necromancer feels both death in the air and great power. He is fascinated by the possibilities for gain in the Shadowfell. He is the only one of the group that does not feel a sense of dread or despair. An open chest is in the middle of the stone bridge, full of random treasures. Rufus sneaks to the chest, inspecting for hidden traps, and he is grabbed by a bizarre tentacled monster that wraps up the halfling, and both of them disappear. The priestess casts a spell, and the group follows her to one of the village huts. She listens at the door, and the sounds of a struggle can be heard from inside. Reinhardt kicks in the door, and the two fighters attack and eventually kill the strange beast. Although Rufus is injured, it isn't severe, and he rejoins the group. The people in the village give the group a wide berth as the PCs take the details of the strange place in. They make their way to the light and tower. An odd staircase rises in the airway with many platforms and occupants. It seems almost infinite. The party moves towards the tower through the center of the small village. Although the strange inhabitants are curious about the group, no one converses with the party. Several shadows seem to gather, and suddenly the PCs are attacked by the very shadows themselves. Ashley holds her holy symbol high, calling on her god, and destroys all 8 shadows in a spark of light. As the group approaches the tower and building, a wiry Eastern monk opens the door and greets the PCs warmly. He speaks in broken common. Hara speaks to him in the Eastern dialect, expressing the group's interest in seeing Musashi's tomb. The monk, named Ing, invites the group inside. Ing's residence is a simple building with a loft, and from the loft he can access the tower and the light source, which appears to be a bright lantern placed under the tower in a small mirrored compartment. This gives the interesting glow seen from a distance in the village. Several bowls sit on a small table filled with water and fruits. Ing tells the group to help themselves. They do, and notice the bowls seem to magically refill themselves. The group also notices the feeling of despair and hopelessness are lifted inside the monk's residence. Musashi is slightly annoyed at the disconnect from the Shadowfell. Ing tells the group about himself and how he came to be the caretaker of Musashi's tomb over 2,000 years ago. He visits the tomb every Kende, which is located on a nearby island. Ing refuses to stray from his 2,000-year-old routine and tells the PCs they must wait 6 more days before he heads back to the tomb. The PCs waited out in the safety of Ing's residence, and the monk is delighted to have company, telling the group many stories of the Shadowfell and his initial time in the strange place. Despite the mission and the magical artifacts they seek, the group finds themselves enjoying the monk's company, and they grow to like him. The time comes to visit the tomb, and Ing gathers up some items, including the bright lantern from the tower. They get on a small raft at the edge of the dark waters as Ing pulls on a rope and moves the raft off the island, much like a cabled ferry in Waterdeep. The monk pulls steadily on the rope, moving the barge through the dark water, the only light coming from his lantern. Ing refuses any help and pulls tirelessly on the rope for nearly 60 minutes before a gloomy island comes into view. The leafless trees seem to be full of shadowy ravens, and Ing pulls the raft up onto a crumbling stone dock. As Ing secures the raft and the group make their way through the island, they see the tomb of the famous warrior Yamamoto Musashi. The monk places his lantern at the base of Musashi's statue and goes about a kata ritual of cleaning the area with vigorous jumps, kicks, and punches as he polishes the tomb and the statue. The ritual takes nearly 16 hours straight. The monk then sits down and meditates for another several hours before he informs the group, "We are ready to head back." As Ing tirelessly pulls the raft back to the small fishing village, the PCs come to the sad realization that they are going to have to kill Ing to get at Musashi's treasures locked in the tomb. He has really grown on the party the last 8 days. The group decides to wait until the next visit to the tomb in 10 days to kill Ing, as he probably would have too many advantages in the close quarters of his residence. Ing remains his jovial self, telling stories and bits of wisdom to entertain the group. Eventually, time passes and they head out on the raft again to the island of Yamamoto Musashi's tomb. It's with heavy hearts for the group as they are not looking forward to the murder of the monk. Once they are at the tomb, the PCs make their move against the monk. Ing easily dodges Reinhardt and Hara's attacks. He even deflects Rufus' sneaking up on him and backflips over the halfling. Suddenly the monk spins and moves so fast, a fierce cold wind kicks up as his blows begin to land on the PCs. The very air shudders and the ravens are spooked from the trees. It isn't long before Rufus, Hara, and Reinhardt lay on their backs in the shallow pool of the temple, more than half their hit points gone from Ing's devastating attack routines. The deadly monk stalks towards Musashi and tells the necromancer that he will soon have a greater understanding of death. Behind Ing, the priestess pulls out one of the rods she stole from the mummy's sarcophagus and lunges at him. He easily blocks it and grasps the rod without even looking at her. A slight shudder courses through Ing's body as he turns to look at Ashley's wide smile. She tells Ing he's been on this plane for long enough and deserves a trip back home. A flash of light erupts around Ing and the monk disappears. Ashley uses all of her healing magic remaining on the injured PCs, and Musashi questions her on what happened. She explained that she banished the monk back to his own plane on the prime material. The necromancer breathes a sigh of relief, and the group sees that Ing's lantern is already noticeably less bright. Rufus wastes no time in inspecting the tomb's door and lock. He deftly removes another poison needle trap and opens the door. As Rufus opens the door to the tomb, a small dust devil full of shadows spins out of the tomb and forms into a dragon, which immediately breathes shadow stuff on Rufus. He falls to the ground dead. Eventually the PCs are victorious over the shadow dragon, but not without a great cost. The thief lies dead and both fighters are reduced to level 1 with single-digit hit points. The treasures of Musashi's tomb are gathered up as the ravens on the island begin swarming and the small shadows bombard the PCs. Reinhardt pulls the raft back towards Ing's village. The ravens continue to pursue the group and Ashley calls upon her god and continuously destroys the shadow ravens that get close. Exhausted, Reinhardt pulls the raft to Ing's residence in the fishing village as the lantern finally loses the last of its light. A group of shadows confronts the party as they move through the village, and again Ashley calls upon her god and destroys the creatures. They make it through the village and cross the small stone bridge and realize the tiny cavern that holds the mirror is completely hidden behind the shadowy curtain pulled across the entrance. They pass through the portal back into the prime material plane. Thank you for watching.
This is Closet Gamer.